This video tutorial explains the features of the STOPS cluster dialog box of the Transit Network Analysis software tool. To access the STOPS cluster dialog box, the transit stops operated by a transit agency must first be displayed on the main map interface. In this video tutorial, the STOPS clusters of the Albany Transit System will be used for demonstration purposes. It is important to mention that the procedure to display transit stops on the main map interface is demonstrated in a separate tutorial video. The STOPS cluster dialog box is displayed anytime a user clicks with the mouse on a STOPS cluster that contains a single transit stop. STOPS clusters that display a number larger than 1 must be clicked with the mouse until they disaggregate into one-stop STOPS clusters before the STOPS cluster dialog box can be displayed. Specific information about the selected transit stop is included in the STOPS cluster dialog box. This information includes the name of the transit stop, the location of the transit stop expressed as latitude and longitude, the service date for the transit stop, and the population search radius in miles. The STOPS cluster dialog box also includes two buttons labeled Generate Report and Open Street View. Clicking on the service date opens a date picker control that allows the user to change the service date. The default service date is today's date, and only a single date can be selected via this control. The user can also enter a different population search radius using the text box provided. The default value for the search radius is 0.25 miles. Before clicking on the button labeled Open Street View, the user must activate the Google Aerial Map layer. Once this is done, and the Open Street View button is clicked, the user will be presented with a Google Street View relative to the selected transit stop. To return to the main map interface from the Google Street View, the user must click on the left arrow located on the upper left corner of the browser window. Clicking on the button labeled Generate Report generates an on-map report that provides detailed information about the transit agencies that operate within a circular shape area centered on the selected transit stop. The radius of the circular shape area is defined by the value in miles entered by the user in the population search radius text box. The size of the circular shape area around the transit stop can be increased or decreased with the edit button located below and to the left of the OTA floating dialog box. Once the size of the circular shape area is defined, the STOPS cluster dialog box will automatically reopen. Also, the button labeled Generate Report must be clicked to update the on-map report. The top portion of the on-map report lists similar information to that displayed by the STOPS cluster dialog box. Clicking on the service date opens a date picker control that allows the user to change the service date. If a new date is selected, the on-map report will be automatically updated. The lower portion of the on-map report organizes information about the circular shape area around the selected transit stop by means of three tab controls labeled Transit Agencies, Census, and Park and Ride. At the top of the Transit Agencies tab, there are three radio buttons that allow a user to display only transit stops, only routes, or display both transit stops and routes when different transit agencies are selected from the table displayed in the lower portion of this tab. Below the three radio buttons, information about the number of stops, number of routes, average fare, and median fare for the transit agencies that operate within the circular shape area around the selected transit stop is displayed. Finally, a table is displayed showing which transit agencies operate within the circular shape area around the selected transit stop. The number of routes, number of stops, and the value count for each stop are shown for each transit agency listed in the table. The value shown in the visit count column represents the total times the stops listed for a transit agency are visited on the day selected by the user. A user may click on a single row or multiple rows of the table to display the location of the stops clusters and the routes operated by these transit agencies on the main map interface. Clicking on a stops cluster composed of a single transit stop displays a pop-up window with specific information about the transit stop. Clicking on a route will also display a pop-up window with detailed information about the route. At the top of the Census tab, there are 3 radio buttons that allow a user to display only census blocks, only census tracts, or display both census blocks and census tracts when different counties are selected from the table displayed in the lower portion of this tab. Below the 3 radio buttons, information is displayed about the urban population, rural population, number of census blocks, and number of census tracts for all the counties included within the circular shape area around the transit stop selected. Finally, a table is displayed showing which counties are included in the circular shape area around the transit stop selected. The urban population, rural population, number of census blocks, and number of census tracts are listed for each individual county in the table. A user may click on a single row or multiple rows of the table to display the distribution of census blocks and/or census tracts within the circular shape area around the transit stop selected. Clicking on an icon composed of a single census block or census tract displays a pop-up window with specific information about the census block or census tract. Clicking on an icon with more than one census block or census tract will zoom in on that area of the main map interface. The user may adjust the zoom level by using either the plus sign or the minus sign buttons located below and to the left of the OTA floating dialog box. The top of the Park and Ride tab displays the number of park and ride lots and the number of available parking spaces in these lots that exist within the circular shape area around the transit stop selected. A table is displayed in the Park and Ride tab showing which counties are included in the circular shape area around the transit stop selected. The number of park and ride lots and the number of available parking spaces in these lots are listed for each individual county in the table. Clicking on a county listed on the table displays the location of park and ride lots within the selected circular shape on map area. Clicking on a park and ride icon displays a pop-up window with information about the specific park and ride location. This pop-up window also allows the user to search for transit stops located nearby to the park and ride lot. To do this, the user must enter a distance in miles in the provided text box and then click the Submit button. If there are transit stops and routes located within the specified distance in miles entered by the user, these are displayed on the circular shape on map area. If no transit services are available within the selected distance of the park and ride lot, the user is notified by an alert generated by the browser.